Before we finish the styling of this page here, and before we also come closer to finishing this module, there is one last property I would like to show you, which is helpful to make your pages look a lot more beautiful. It's the box shadow property. The box shadow simply adds a shadow around an element's frame, around its border, so to say. Well, and if we look at our list items here, some additional shadow here to make these look a bit better is definitely helpful. Before we apply the box shadow property though in our code, let's first get started here with our list items here, and let's apply this property directly here in the DevTools. So you simply click into the area for the CSS rules of the list item, and now you add the box shadow property, this one. And we can now define the values for this box shadow property in many different ways. I will show you a very common one here, which consists of 4 separate values which we define. The first value here is the so-called offset along the x-axis. This means we will move this shadow from being directly behind our element to the right a bit, so to say. So we could use 5 pixels here, for example, like this. Then the second value we define following the offset along the x-axis is the offset along the y-axis. So we push the shadow down a bit according to our definition here, which could again be 5 pixels. You can now see the shadow immediately on the website here for our list items. Now we have a third option, which defines the so-called blur radius, because at the moment you see it's a very strict ending of that box shadow, and with the radius we can make this a bit softer. We could again use a value of 5 pixels maybe. We'll of course define these differently then in the final code. If you use 5 pixels, it's like this. If you would use 20 pixels, for example, you see it would look like that. So feel free to play around here. We'll go with 5 pixels for the moment. And then finally, as a fourth value, we can define the color of our box shadow. By default, it's this black tone here. I'll again use RGB, or specifically RGBA, which allows me to define the color as we know it before. So we could, for example, say 0, 0, 0 to have a black tone. And then I have to define the opacity of this color. An opacity of 1, for example, here would simply, well, mean a black shadow. If I would set it to 0.2, we see this very light box shadow here, and 0.2 would actually be a good value here. Now, as you see, with this box shadow, we can tailor this a bit more. I think for the x-axis, a very slight movement of 1 or 2 pixels maybe should be enough. Same thing here for our y-axis. And maybe here we'll also make the radius a bit smaller with 4 pixels. So it's very subtle, so to say, but it gives the page a very good look. Maybe even just 1 pixel here, let's see. And also 1 pixel there. And also just 1 pixel there. Yeah, I think it's even better. So it gives the page a very good look and a bit more this 3D look for our elements. So this is a very nice thing when it comes to designing such different elements here. And also something we often prefer when we compare it to borders, which don't give our elements this nice look. However, we still have to add this code to our actual code. So let's reload this and let's go back to the code. And here for our list items, we'll now add the box shadow here, box shadow, and we will use, I think it was 1 pixel with a value of 0, 0, 0, and 0.2 for the opacity. With this, we improve the look of our website even more. So this is the box shadow property. Before we continue with our today's challenge page here, where we also apply the concepts we learned about in this module, I would like to clean up our margins in the header though. Because here we have a margin top and bottom in the h1 element. We have the margin on the paragraph and here also on our anchor tag. And with the new knowledge gained, it would actually be sufficient to add a margin just to our paragraph here. The margins for the anchor tag and the h1 element are therefore not required. Let's do this first by setting the margin on the h1 element to 0 here. Then by maybe increasing this margin a bit to 12 pixels for the paragraph, this one here. And now we'll also set the margin of our anchor tag here to 0, like this. With that, the look didn't change a lot, but now we don't have a margin on the h1 element. The top and bottom margin on our paragraph, by the way, top and bottom margin should be sufficient here, like this. Yeah, now it's better. And no margin here for the anchor tag. Here we have the bottom margin on the header to define the distance between the header and the main element. With this, we finished this page. Now, as a next step, we'll have a look at our today's challenge here. Here is now the time for you to apply the knowledge we gained to change the style of this page significantly. So in the next lecture, I'll show you what this page should look like first. Then you have the chance to try this on your own, and then we'll add the styling to this page together.